If you feel challenged or confused by much of modern art, blame it on Robert Rauschenberg. He's the painter who pushed back the boundaries of what we call art. He was an inventor of contemporary performance art. He brought technology to fine art. He put art on dancers. He developed groundbreaking techniques for putting images on paper or anything else. He works in what he calls the gap between art and life. 50 years ago, his outrageous creations made him the bad boy of the art world. And now, he's compared to Picasso.
American Masters.
Brought to you by Conseco. How do you plan on funding your retirement? Conseco can help. Conseco. Step up.
Support for American Masters is also provided by the Park Foundation, dedicated to education and quality television. Additional funding for American Masters is provided by the National Endowment for the Arts, Rosalind P. Walter, Jack Rudin, the Blanche and Irving Laurie Foundation, the Andre and Elizabeth Cortege Foundation, and by viewers like you. Funding for Robert Rauschenberg, Inventive Genius, was also provided by Jerome and Dawn Green, and by the following.
It starts with, I'm someplace where there's something that I want to photograph. And from then on, it's all uphill. It's a quick slide when all the processes are completed.
I always thought what it would be like to be around Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci when they were alive. And what a missed opportunity. And then I realized I've been around Bob Rauschenberg, and it's just as good, I'm sure.
Now, this is where we're hoping we'd get a bad image, huh? Got close to it. Yep. That's good.
If you knew that there was something wonderful happening, if there's a parade coming down the street, you want to get out and be in the parade, you know, and there's a way in which that's kind of how his work is. It's like, well, that looks like really fun. Give me one of those batons. I'm going to come along too, you know, and you're welcomed in.
Bob Rauschenberg says it wasn't until he was 18 years old that he even knew there was such a thing as art. One weekend, on furlough from the Navy, he went for the first time to a museum, where he saw Gainsborough's Blue Boy and Thomas Lawrence's Pinky.
He recognized the paintings because he had seen them reproduced on playing cards, but it struck him for the first time that somebody had made these, somebody whose profession it was to do these, and it was something that you could do in the world. It just had never occurred to him before.
Born in 1925, Robert Rauschenberg was raised in the gritty oil refinery town of Port Arthur, Texas. At one time, he had wanted to become a preacher, but his evangelical church forbade dancing, so after high school, despite troubles reading, he went to the University of Texas to study pharmacy. Rauschenberg objected to dissecting a live frog in biology class, which put an end to college. So in 1944, he joined the Navy. There he had shown a talent for drawing, and after the war, he entered art school in Kansas City, Missouri. Then he went on to Paris on the GI Bill.
I couldn't understand the instructions that I was getting. And so I just went out on the streets. It got too embarrassing after a point, because all the other people in the class, how they weren't doing very interesting work. They were doing Picassos and Legers and Matisses, but in different colors. And that didn't interest me.
Rauschenberg returned to the United States with his future bride, Sue Weil, taking up studies at Black Mountain College, an experimental art school in western North Carolina. Black Mountain was a magnet for many of the artists who would shape American culture. Among them, painter Cy Twombly, architect Buckminster Fuller, and dancer Merce Cunningham.
Black Mountain was such a different kind of place that it's not that one would always expect something odd, but if something odd came along, that was perfectly all right. And everybody was involved. For me, that was, aside from the dance part, was quite a marvelous experience to be involved with people from so many different areas.
The autocratic director of the art program was Bauhaus artist Joseph Albers, who drilled into his students a respect for color, line, and form. He was a tough disciplinarian, and Rauschenberg found him an impossible person, yet the best teacher he ever had.
The studios were small, so I painted under the studio building. Albers was a very nosy man. And I had enough of him in class, and I didn't see any reason why I should have more. I was painting with tar and red lead and white lead too. So to hide them, it'd still be wet, but I had to go to class, and I just turned them over in the gravel. And they got very interesting, because where the paint was so thick and made out of tar, I discovered pavement, which had already been discovered, unfortunately.
The newly emergent art movement of the day was abstract expressionism, which had developed after World War II, was such a force that the International Center of Art shifted from Paris to New York. These action painters were burly, athletic types, artists like Jackson Pollock, Franz Kline, William de Kooning, who expressed their angst about contemporary life with large, sweeping brushstrokes, and Mark Rothko, who used fields of color to convey emotion.
They felt that they were dealing with the major issues of all time, as Rothko described it as tragedy, ecstasy, doom, and so forth. Bob's generation were also reacting against this kind of heavy psychological, philosophical input.
Bob Rauschenberg studied with the abstract expressionists, with Motherwell, with de Kooning, and he learned about the importance of the gesture. He studied the swipes and swaths of a Willem de Kooning and the drips and dribbles of a Jackson Pollock, and he loved that. He was excited by that style. But what Bob did, he led the breakaway from abstract expressionism.
I was trained as a junior abstract expressionist, and in fact I was, before I was me, I was de Kooning. And Rauschenberg provided perhaps a direct entrance out of what I was doing as a kind of junior abstract expressionist. He showed the way.
Bob kept pushing the envelope. He kept trying more things. Endless curiosity, endless energy, endless inventive genius.
Rauschenberg put White House paint on canvas. He put John Cage at the wheel of a Model A Ford and inked the tire, creating automobile tire print. As Cage drove across a length of paper,